everyone. In this video I will show you how to make a gate with gates. I plan to make the gates from corrugated sheet and square profile, something like that. The height of the gates and the gate will be 2 meters. First of all, it is necessary to dismantle the old gate and gates and concrete the standing profiles. The standing profiles are 80 by 80 millimeters in size and have a wall thickness of 3 millimeters. Their length is 3 meters. Now we remove the old gate and dismantle the support pipe. And with the help of a jack we will pull out this post. And now the post is dismantled. It's good that it was without concrete. We had to pull it out, and we will drill a hole for the standing profile near the gate. And proceed to dismantle the gates. To facilitate the destruction of the concrete, you can use a regular perforator on the concreted posts. Now we need to level the posts relative to the ground level. The height from the ground level should be 2 meters 30 centimeters. At the moment, the height of the pipe above ground level is 2.10 meters. It is necessary to make a 2 centimeter sand cement cushion and raise it higher. I have some broken pieces of cement mortar. That will be useful for filling underneath, so the post doesn't rust. To the required height, it is essential to add approximately 12 centimeters of broken concrete in order to achieve the desired result. And we very carefully level the post. We very carefully stretch the rope and very carefully level all the posts to the same level. For preliminary fixation of the post, it is necessary to place wooden bushings or bricks underneath to prevent it from shifting and to level it. To ascertain the precise location of the square relative to the gate, I carefully utilize one profile as a level ruler, which is placed against 2 posts and aligned with the axis. We accurately level the second post relative to the first. After installing 2 posts, it is easy to install the third one, which should be aligned with them. Here will be a post, and the width of the wicket is 95 centimeters. As we have a narrow yard, after leveling the posts, we will proceed with their concreting. I will be making concrete of grade M300. I have 550 cement, the strongest one. The proportions are slightly less than for 400. The proportion is 10 litres of cement, 22 litres of sand, and 37 litres of gravel. Our concrete mixer is not very large, so we divide everything by 2 and get these numbers to obtain 3.45 litres of mortar. The concrete mortar is ready, and it can be unloaded. We used twice as much water as we had planned. And once again we check the vertical of the post from both sides. And now you can proceed with the installation of the gate. First, it is necessary to secure a 20 by 40 centimeters profile to the lower part of the gate, but only horizontally. The distance from the ground level to the gate will be 15 centimeters in my case. You need to ensure that the gate does not rub against the ground when opening. The gap should not be too large to prevent too many dogs and cats from crawling under the gate into your yard. With the help of spacers, I aligned the profile. Strictly horizontally, and it needs to be tack welded at the corners. Now we take 3mm gaskets, inserts and clamps and start installing the vertical end profiles. We attach the profile to the posts where the hinges will be located. And all that's left is to tack the top profile at the corners. It is perfectly horizontal, as I have already checked it with a level. Now we find center. Of the gate, weld 2 profiles with a 6mm gap. To set an accurate gap between the 2 parts of the gate, I use the same 3mm thick metal shims and a clamp. This is how the second gate profile is fixed. And it is necessary to weld these joints with spot welding. And we fix the lower crossbar on the gate. The distance from the bottom of the gate to the crossbar is 50 centimeters, 1/4 of the gate's height. This is how it will look. I haven't permanently welded it yet, just tacked it at this moment. The same crossbar will be on the second half of the gate and also on top of Wicket. Now it is necessary to weld a 16x16 square around the perimeter for the corrugated sheet support. This square will provide additional rigidity to the structure and the gate will not deform. For preliminary fixation, I will use clamps. We tack it with small points at 10 centimeters intervals. When the lattice around the perimeter of the gate for the corrugated sheet is ready, it is necessary to perform vertical lattice across the entire gate area. Our profile is T7 and the distance between the waves is 11.8, which needs to be done on the corrugated sheet. We use a caliper for better accuracy to mark with a step of 11.8 centimeters. The same marking needs to be done on the upper part. Now measure the distance between the top and bottom profile with a tape measure and cut the vertical profiles to a length of 142.7 centimeters. My profile is approximately square with a wall thickness of 2 mm and has a size of 18 by 18 mm. The first vertical profile is set. The distance between them is exactly 10 centimeters, and you can weld exactly 10 centimeters. The distance between the centers equals the wave width of 11.8 centimeters. I didn't weld all the vertical partitions because it takes too long, so I only welded them from the inside. The appearance is definitely neater. As you can see, the gaps are minimal, there are no overlaps, unlike the first strips, which will still need to be trimmed. The weld seams will need to be slightly ground down because there will be contact with the corrugated sheet, and it is necessary for it to fit tightly to the lathing. Therefore, we take the grinding wheel and start smoothing the seams. All the vertical crossbars are welded. There will also be crossbars at the bottom. But first, we will weld the hinges to make sure the gates are aligned properly and not skewed in the center. Then we can continue the work. The hinges are 13 centimeters long and 2 mm in diameter, diameter 2 centimeters, diameter 2 centimeters, cm, diameter 2 centimeters, 3 millimeters. Inside there is a small ball that makes it easier to open the gates and prevent them from jamming. We will weld them. The gates will be heavy, so when welding the hinges, it is necessary to use plates with a thickness of 3 millimeters. The height of the plate welding will be 25 centimeters from the top and bottom. And with the help of a level, we will draw a line. At the top level of the hinge, we securely weld a plate across the width of the gates. And the second piece is welded unnecessarily lower. The seam didn't turn out very nice, so we'll process it with a grinder. Here, one hinge is secured and processed. Let's proceed to the bottom hinge, which will also be attached, 25 centimeters from the bottom of the gates. Here's the second hinge ready, already processed. Nothing extra is sticking out. Everything is securely welded. Now that the hinges are welded, 4 of them, and you can proceed to carefully trim the welded areas that secured the gates. And now you can cut the gates into 2 halves. Following that, you will be able to proceed to open the gates and continue on your journey without any further delays. The large, ornate gates open smoothly and silently, without any creaks or signs of sagging, as if they were brand new and perfectly maintained. The gap is uniform. A cover strip will be installed here later, so it's not a big deal. I have temporarily installed a fastener at the top. Post to prevent the gate from sagging, and then there will be a carport truss. Next, I will make a bolt for the gates. For this, I will use a solid square measuring 15 by 15 millimeters and a square profile pipe measuring 20 by 20 millimeters. On one side of the gates we will weld a longer square, and on the other side 2 shorter ones. A handle like this will be welded between them. Here one part is welded. Now it is necessary to weld a piece of square profile on one side and the other considering the latch entry to ensure the strip is enough to close. And weld this kind of handle to the latch at a very strictly and precisely and exactly defined spot at a right angle. Here in this step, the T-shaped latch is carefully made. Now it is necessary to securely and precisely weld a second piece of profile so that the latch moves freely and does not fall out, so that it functions properly. In this scenario, the bolt is fully prepared and can be effortlessly opened and closed whenever it is necessary to do so, ensuring smooth operation. The next stops will be at the bottom as well, but that will be later, after we do the welding of the lower part. In the next stage, we will proceed with the installation of the gate. It will have the same design as the gates. We use a level to mark the horizontal line. We place 3 mm spacers and secure the vertical posts with a clamp. And tack weld the corners. We carefully make 2 tack welds at the front, ensuring they are placed at the top and bottom sections for stability and strength. For the door frame of the Wicket gate, I will use 2 3 mm gaskets. A size of 6 mm will be enough to compensate for thermal expansion.
Next, carefully align and tack weld the top part of the assembly, ensuring that all edges are properly matched and secured in place to maintain structural integrity. Now we will weld the bottom horizontal strip to the Wicket gate, just like on the gate.
In the next step, we meticulously and carefully construct the lattice for the Wicket gate. And in the subsequent step, we will precisely weld the hinges onto the Wicket gate. Now that the hinges are installed, we can untie the Wicket gate, freeing it from the posts. We begin by opening the Wicket gate, which allows us to start the process of creating the same intricate lattice pattern that is present on the top section of both the gate and the Wicket gate. At this point, it becomes essential to ensure that the metal strip, which is a crucial component for the door frame, is securely fastened to both the Wicket gate and the main gate. This step is vital for the overall stability and functionality of the gate structure. By carefully securing the metal strip, we can guarantee that the door frame will remain sturdy and reliable over time, providing long-lasting durability and security.
I have already secured it with clamps. About 2 centimeters overlap onto the Wicket gate. Now it just needs to be welded. We will weld with small tack welds on outside and at the inner corner. Here, the strip for the door frame is welded and the door closes tightly.
There are absolutely no gaps present. The lower lathing has been meticulously prepared and is now ready. Consequently, the latch can be securely mounted onto the gate without any issues. I bought such a latch, but it does not fit in width, so I turned the bolt and will replace the main part using 2 pieces of square profile. The factory-made bolt will not rust. It is indeed very neatly made and fits extremely well into a 17 by 17 mm profile. We tack weld the square profile on one side along the gate cut. And at this distance on the other side, now we mark the exact position of the bolt on the wooden post and make a precise hole in it. I will carefully drill with a 10 mm diameter drill bit to make sure the bolt fits perfectly. Using a jigsaw with a metal blade, we turn the round hole into a square one. And we will carefully smooth out the rough edges of the hole using a square file, making sure to take our time and ensure a perfect finish. Now let's check the operation of the lock and the alignment of the hole with the bolt. Everything closes perfectly. The next step is to make the lower bolt gate. For this, I will use a rod with a diameter of 1 centimeter. And we will make L-shaped levers. They could be bent, but it's more convenient for me to weld them, since the angle will then be exactly 90 degrees. This is the bolt that turned out. We'll make another one just like it, and then clean everything well from rust. Here, I have cleaned the bolts from rust with a sanding disc. Now, they need to be slightly sharpened so that they fit better into their corresponding places on the ground. I will also carefully sharpen them with a grinding wheel using an angle grinder, and precisely to ensure the best results. Such an angle of sharpening is quite sufficient for the proper fixation of the bolt in its place. And now, we will weld 2 square profiles, each 300 centimeters long, and measuring 20 by 20 millimeters. Here is one latch that is ready, and we carefully place the pipe into it. The fixation process is done, and we proceed to weld the fastener, securely latching the gates. Here are the latch holders that are used specifically for securing the gates. And in the next step, we will weld the decorative forging to the main part of the gates and the wicket. We find the center, press the forging with clamps, and weld at the points where the forging touches the vertical strips of the gates and the wicket. To properly fix the forging in the center of the gates, it is necessary to find the middle and use a level to draw a strict horizontal line, and we securely fix the forging with clamps, and we weld the forging from the inside. The gates look like this. They are not painted yet, so their appearance is not very attractive. Currently, the forging is welded. I won't do any forging at the top because there will be a carport, and the distance between the carport and the gates is only 20 centimeters. The gates are almost ready. All that's left is to paint them and attach the corrugated sheet around the perimeter. For this I use 3-component paint because the paint needs to be durable and of high quality. You can use any paint. I will have black, glossy 3-component paint. It contains a rust inhibitor, primer, and the paint itself. Open the paint and mix it well. Separation of the paint is unacceptable because all components must be together. We pour the paint into a small container and start working. In the next stage, we will start covering the gates and the wicket with corrugated metal sheets. The corrugated metal sheet measures 1.2 meters by 2 meters with a wave height of 0.7. We will cut it. We will cut it using a thin metal cutting disc.
I will screw into each wave and the center of the profile with a critical stand.
The standard width of the corrugated metal sheet was not enough, so we used a whole sheet of corrugated metal and an additional 35 centimeter piece. And now, all that's left is to secure the last piece at the bottom. The lock goes one after another so that this outer part presses the arc and there is no gap. The gates are covered. And now we will proceed to cover the wicket right now. We attach the last bottom part of the profile and the wicket is ready. This is how the beautiful gate and wicket complex indeed turned out truly. Here, we might later touch up the flowers with yellow, silver or gold paint. We'll see. Everything is ready now. All that's left is to install the lock with the handle and the job will be finished. In the next stage, we will be inserting the lock into the wicket. The lock I have is a standard type with a cylinder. The cylinder has a latch on the inside and a lock on the outside. The handles are very basic, black.
At a distance of 1 meter from the lower level of the gate, I left a space for the lock. The lock will be in this place, and we are marking it out. I will cut out one part of the 40 by 20 profile because it can't be cut due to its thickness, and we will weld the plate on top. The lock is approximately 18 mm thick. It is necessary to make a cut in the profile of this width. To protect the profile's coating from damage when working with the angle grinder, I use painter's tape. And cut out a piece of the profile for the lock. And carefully take out a piece of the profile. Thoroughly determine the dimensions of the lock. It fits freely. And thoroughly clean the lock seating area using a grinding wheel on the grinder. Now the lock fits very tightly with a small gap. And after this, we weld the plate back in place. We fit the lock in its place, and it fits perfectly. Now it is necessary to drill a hole in this plate for the square and the lock cylinder. We place the lock against the plate and mark it. Here are the holes in the profile and in the plate. One is ready. Here the holes are ready for the square and the cylinder, and we will check how they fit. Everything fits perfectly, so we can continue working. We paint the welded plate and wait for the paint to dry. Now you can remove the painter's tape from the corrugated sheet.
Here, the lock has settled into its place. The holes in the plate are cut precisely to the size of the square, and the core of the lock, using galvanized self-tapping screws with a hidden head, we fasten the lock in its place.
Carefully insert the core component into its designated position within the assembly, ensuring it is properly aligned. Once in place, securely fasten it using a bolt, making sure it is tightened adequately to prevent any movement, and we fasten the handle with the same stainless self-tapping screws. Here the lock and cover are installed. We check the lock's operation. The handle presses without effort and works excellently, but there is a problem on the outside. There is nowhere to secure the handle here. For mounting the handle of the lock, I definitely use a frame that I will weld to the guides, and the handle will be fastened to it with 4 bolts. Now you need to carefully paint this frame and screw the handle here. Next, we carefully screw the handle into its designated place, ensuring it is securely fastened and properly aligned to function correctly. Here's the handle in place. The next step is to secure the colored strip of the lock. It looks like this. We mark the edge of the block on the post with a simple pencil. Now we carefully apply the locking plate to the designated area and precisely mark the exact mounting points. After that, we proceed to securely screw the plate into place, ensuring it is firmly attached. Now we trace the holes inside and will carefully cut them. In the post, drilling a hole to the diameter of the blade. And start cutting it with a jigsaw. With a small saw for metal, using a small milling cutter, we carefully and precisely slightly round off the top and bottom edges. We check the lock's operation. It closes and opens without problems or slightly sticking.
All that's left is to paint the flowers on the forging to make it look nicer. I use this gold-colored acrylic varnish.
We ended up with such cute golden flowers in the center of the forging, and finally, our gates with the wicket are ready.